All right, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bitcoin Brief with Tom Vays and the one and only Jimmy Song, where we bring you some of the more interesting stories of the week, or in this case, all of the stories from the last 24 hours, because that has absolutely been the most exciting part of the crypto space over the last week since our last show. Jimmy, how are you this morning?
I'm kind of amazed at how much the entire space has reacted to one tweet, but we'll talk about it, I'm sure.
All right. Yep. And we're going to probably jump right into it. Giacomo Zucco is supposed to be able to join us very, very soon. So hopefully, because I can't wait to hear his rant about Elon, but I'm sure Jimmy's will be just as good. All right. Without any further ado, we are jumping right in to our headline story. We're not even going to mess around. I did a stream late last night talking about it. I'm gonna just give Jimmy the floor. Everyone has seen the news. We don't need to, read Elon's tweet again. It comes a day after he asked the community whether he should start accepting Dogecoin for his products, and now we have this. Jimmy, floor is yours.
Yeah, this is energy FUD that's been debunked like a billion times. But the latest one I think is. Like he's saying it's using too much energy. But if you look at just like world energy production, something like, a good 15-20% of it just goes wasted because energy is all about availability. If your house no longer gets electricity, you are out. And it has to be optimized for availability, not for, and not all of it gets used. In fact, a lot of it gets wasted. And the thing that a lot of people don't understand about Bitcoin is that it seeks the cheapest source of energy. And a lot of that cheap energy is the energy that would otherwise get wasted. And this is where Bitcoin comes to the fore. It's using a tiny percentage of all of the energy that gets wasted on a daily basis. So it's kind of this weird FUD that a lot of people don't really understand how energy works. They think it's like completely fungible and that, a terawatt of energy produced here is the same as a terawatt of energy produced there. It's not. It has to get used within that sphere. Energy doesn't store very well. Battery technology isn't very good. So it either gets used or is kind of wasted. And a lot more energy is wasted than Bitcoin takes up by like many orders of magnitude. So in a sense, this is ridiculous FUD. Now, why is Elon doing this? Well, he runs a company that's based on electric vehicles, and his consumer base are the quote unquote environmentally conscious. He obviously gets a lot of subsidies from governments, especially in the United States. You get tax credits for buying a Tesla and so on, and those are about to run out. So if he doesn't sort of bow down to these concerns that probably politicians through back channels have been telling him about, he's not going to continue to get these subsidies and so on. And he knows that the reputation that he enjoys in the public with a lot of people, like it could come under threat the minute one of these politicians goes on air and condemns him for doing X, Y, or Z with Bitcoin. So this to me is his sort of like political move as a way to throw the environmentalists a bone, right? Like he's saying, okay, I'm going to acknowledge it. I'm not selling my Bitcoin. That's the one thing that he definitely said, which stood out to me. We're not selling any of the Bitcoin, but as a bone being thrown to you, we're not going to accept Bitcoin for Teslas, which I suspect were very little anyway. Like very few actual Bitcoin holders want to buy Teslas with their Bitcoin. So he did all this as a way to throw them a bone, to look like he's virtue signaling and so on. And the thing is, like, he recognizes the powerful position that he's in. He's very much like one of these CEOs that knows that he has a lot of influence, and he knows that by saying something like this, he knows through the whole Dogecoin thing that he can affect the price of other things the minute he says something. And he's trying to sort of like feel out the limits of that. I think this is the beginning of the end of his influence in Bitcoin, personally, because we did react quite a bit yesterday. But you know what? Like, the next time he does it, it's not going to drop that much, and the time after that he does it, it's going to drop even less. This is the thing about Bitcoin: people learn, and all of those weak hands, they get shaken out on these things. Well, the people that held, they are going to become stronger holders. They're going to become, they're going to have more stronger hands. They're gonna become diamond hands, as it were. So, in a sense, like, this is something that you can really only do once, and it seems like he's trying. But yeah, I mean, I don't think he's going to be that influential over Bitcoin, especially as he does stuff like this.
All right, I got a bunch of my own comments, but let's welcome Giacomo Zucco to the show. Giacomo, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. What about you, Tom?
Well, could have been better without the price of Bitcoin dropping like 15%. But hey, I'm sure you've seen what Elon did. I'm sure you've read a bunch of comments. I think Peter Schiff had one of the best trolls. I have to double check if that's the real Peter Schiff.
Yeah, the zucchini emoticon.
I'm gonna save my comments till after you're done. Floor is yours.
Yeah, I also tweeted a little bit. Well, first, in the merit of what Elon wrote in this tweet and in this PR release from Tesla, I also tweeted out, is pinned in my profile. If you check, a very simple, let's say, almost infographic, very short, the description of the problems, because the tweet is all wrong, and the PR by Tesla is completely nonsense. First of all, it's based on the assumption that Bitcoin consumes more or less energy the more or the less transactions you make. So he's saying, we will still hold it, but we cannot accept transactions because transaction will be environmentally damaging. But Bitcoin doesn't work like that. Bitcoin consumes something for security. So Bitcoin consumes some energy because that energy represents the cost for miners to rewrite the history. So in order to give security to past transaction, it creates a cost to rewrite the past. That has nothing to do with the number of transactions. If miners mine empty block, just getting the Coinbase, the block subsidy, they will spend some energy. If miners mine one transaction, two transactions, 100 transactions, that's completely irrelevant. So the fact that Tesla is accepting or not Bitcoin transaction is completely irrelevant to the overall energetic expenditure of Bitcoin. So this is the first huge misunderstanding of the this is basically typical of somebody who knows nothing about Bitcoin. So this begs the question: is Elon trolling, pretending to be dumb, or being really clueless about Bitcoin? And eventually I will try to elaborate some theory about that, just like Jimmy did. The second point, the second huge problem with this narrative is that it starts from the assumption that miners are consuming more and more rare fossil stuff, which is going to be over soon, and not renewable sources, which is also completely false and illogic. For miners, energy consumption is not a revenue. Miners are not incentivized to spend more energy, to consume more energy. Miners are incentivized to spend less energy if they can reach the same amount of hash rate with less energy. Energy for miners is a cost, not a revenue. So miners are incentivized to invest in efficiency. So when there is, as Jimmy said before, when there is arbitrage, because maybe there is some huge dam in China, which was planned by the Communist Party for 10 years ago, but nobody uses, then miners will bribe the Communist Party member to get water from the dam because that's inefficient. Basically, miners will try to arbitrage efficient use of energy because for them, energy is a cost, not a revenue. They will always minimize the amount of energy expended for the same hash rate. And they will also invest in renewable or otherwise cheap and sustainable for them, not sustainable for the environment, energy. So miners are incentivized to spend less, not more, of course. The third huge problem with the tweet is that it lets basically it lets things that the alternative to Bitcoin may in any way be cheaper, energetically speaking, which is absolutely false. Right now, the mining of gold, which was the money that humanity, some money that humanity uses for millenniums, it's about 1 order of magnitude or more, and especially the cost of the Federal Reserve and the government, the U.S. government and the U.S. military that protects the purchasing power worldwide of the Federal Reserve note, that's probably 3-4 orders of magnitude or more. But even in Bitcoin consumed more, the real point is even deeper. The point is that in general, there is nothing cheaper than proof of work, meaning that when you are asking miners to provide some proof that they will lose money if they write history, you are basically asking them to expend some to sustain some cost, some opportunity cost to rewrite the history. There is no way you can ask them some opportunity cost with which is less wasteful. It will be just the same. It was Paul Stork in a few years ago to write the article, "Nothing is cheaper than proof of work," meaning that if the reward of the block is 1,000, then miners will just consume everything they can up to 999 and not more, because they want to make a margin. And if you go to proof of stake instead, or if you use proof of ballots, proof of violence like the US government instead, it's just the same. People will just use the same amount of resources, which is comparable with the reward that they will get plus a margin. So there is no way to go around that. There is no proof of stake, no delegated proof of stake, no DAG. There's always the same kind of fundamental dynamic. And also, finally, there are two considerations. First, Bitcoin as hard money, if it works, it will probably protect the environment, because sound money is at odds with consumerism and waste and the depletion of resources. Sound money is all about low-time preference, conservation, and responsible use of resources for the future, while central banks and inflation, those are forces that drive consumption, depletion, waste production, and pollution. So Bitcoin will reduce pollution, at least marginally, at least for the monetary characteristic, monetary incentives to pollution. And then the final thing about all this story is, if you are using your Bitcoin to buy Teslas, you're doing it wrong. The whole point of Bitcoin is that eventually it will be worth way more than a Tesla. So hodl it and don't spend it for a Tesla. So this doesn't make any sense. As Jimmy said, the important sentence is that even if they are considering to stop, if they're stopping accepting Bitcoin for Tesla, which nobody's going to spend anyway because it's stupid, they are still keeping Bitcoin as a store of value, which is the main use case for Bitcoin right now and probably in the next future. Now, the only thing that remains to argue about is why, I mean, is really Elon that dumb, not knowing all this stuff, or is he trolling, or he's just like conceding something to the government or to environmentalists in order to is this like a trade? I give you some rhetoric about transaction, and in exchange you let me keep Bitcoin in the treasury of the company. We don't know. I think this is possible. It's possible that he sees a new wave of regulatory restrictions coming, and these restrictions are mostly based on the environmental bullshit about Bitcoin. Or it may be that he just has to pledge to his own, as Jimmy said, energetic conscious market base, because it's Tesla, it's electricity and stuff like that. It's still very ironic, because his base is also the base of SpaceX, where he used fossil fuels to create a giant thrust for a rocket every day. So it's a little bit contradictory, but anyway, this is another possibility. Another possibility that is just trolling. I mean, he spent all the last months to troll and manipulate the market about the GameStop and about Dogecoin. He likes to do that. I think he considers it funny. He likes to have the power to manipulate the entire market, and it's not. I will not rule out the idea that instead of playing 4D chess with regulators, he's just having a lots of fun, seeing that he can manipulate the price of Bitcoin.
All right, Jimmy, you have anything to add on that? Hey, I really like, Giacomo, by the way, everything you just said. I really liked the part about the US dollar is just backed by proof of violence, and the amount of energy you put into that is slightly less than what you get out by having the US dollar. That's actually, that was really, really well stated. Jimmy?
Well, so one other thing I want to add is that like there's something to what Giacomo was saying. Like he is kind of having fun, but he's also kind of playing a game with other CEOs. And you have to understand this about CEOs, is that they are insanely competitive, especially with other CEOs. So for example, I'm sure Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, despite having come from the same company, or maybe because they come from the same company, are insane rivals. They are always trying to one up each other. And in a way, Elon has probably the most influence of any CEO in the United States right now, and probably the world. And you know, his sort of like weird obsession with these like meme coins and things like that. This is kind of like a power move against other CEOs, right? It's sort of like saying, hey, you know what? I can do this with Dogecoin. That's how powerful I am. You try doing that. There's no way you can do anything like that. And I'm going to show that I am the alpha CEO versus all of these other alpha CEOs. And, you know, like you might think that you're stronger than me, but you're not. And, you know, I think Tesla is like one of the top, you know, by market cap in the world and everything else. Like he's using all of this as a way to not necessarily troll other people, but troll other CEOs, right? It's a way for him to show his power. Now, like when he continues to do this, right? Like I think he kind of like this particular tweet about Bitcoin might have been a part of that. It's like, okay, watch guys, I'm going to tank the price of Bitcoin with one tweet, something to that effect. I don't know. I don't think it worked quite as well as he might have thought, because like you know, this sort of opens the door for another big tech CEO to come in and say, you know what, like he might not think so, but I actually think it's good. And, you know, like, you know, sort of ride it on the way up and be the darling of Bitcoiners. And when Bitcoin market cap exceeds that you know, once they are seen as more bullish on Bitcoin than Elon, then they sort of get to be the alpha dog CEO over the world. I don't know. I think it's possible, and Elon might have overplayed his hand a little bit, but yeah, I mean, there is sort of this other dynamic that's going on that I don't think the public really understands or knows about. But you know, I mean, these guys are insanely competitive, and you know, they want to show each other up at every opportunity.
All right, so I guess it's time to move on to our next story. I don't really have much to add. I gave a lot of my comments yesterday. It's just that I really hate it when someone says something or writes something, in this case of Elon, that is wrong on the factual level and theoretical level, right? And this is where so many arguments get very, very frustrating. This is the Nouriel Roubini problem, especially Nouriel Roubini, where he is just wrong on the facts of the situation. And even if he was right on the facts of the situation, he has come to the wrong conclusion based on the wrong facts of the situation. And these are very frustrating arguments. The same arguments for bigger blocks. They had bad facts, and with those bad facts, they're still making bad conclusions. So you can argue with them on the facts, or you can argue with them on their conclusion, but then you're acknowledging that the facts are wrong, but you're assuming that the facts are true, and then you're still trying to debunk their argument, but then you're making yourself look like an idiot because you're assuming that bad facts are actual facts. What are your views on these constant situations in the crypto space? Probably Giacomo.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not as well, especially I think because we feel where we took the three of us actually in different ways, especially Jimmy with the workshops, but all of us and the books, but all of us actually, you Tom with your videos, we took the role of educators. So we don't just like to speculate or to use Bitcoin to save money or to use Bitcoin to spend money. We also like to talk about Bitcoin and explain Bitcoin. And when people, in order to follow their agendas, they don't only have to do something, to say something stupid, but to explicitly misrepresent how Bitcoin works, and they have a big stage, like in this case. This is like a huge version of the problem that we had with Roger Ver, as you said, for block size. You have somebody with a big platform. In that case, it was smaller. Now it's really, really big. And they will just state something deeply incorrect about Bitcoin in order to make a case for something which is actually depending on their own agenda for other reasons and for other motives. So this is bad. This is very triggering. That said, if you try to take it with some philosophy, I mean, chipsets tonight. So I was really not hoping to get Bitcoin under 60K at May 2021. It was a pleasant surprise. And if you know that the dynamic, that ultimately the market dynamic will actually become immune. I mean, as Jimmy said, this didn't really work that well, probably for as he expected. And also it will work less and less well every time. This is just like China bans Bitcoin. The first time that China bans Bitcoin, Bitcoin takes a huge hit. The second time's meh. The fourth time, and then the eighth time that China bans Bitcoin, nobody cares. And it will be the same for this game of Elon Musk. It will be the same for other CEO coming and going. And even if tomorrow, I don't know, we have Jack Dorsey leaving Bitcoin for some shitcoin, eventually it will not even matter anymore. So it's good. It's an immune process. It's just like immunization. You get a little bit of this virus and you build up your immune system, and eventually Bitcoin will not care of what Elon Musk says or thinks, which is actually good.
Yeah, and Giacomo, this is your tweet that you tweeted out, and with some additional commentary, guys. So please check that out. This tweet is not in the video description, but I will try to remember to add it. Okay, so while Elon Musk seems to not be too thrilled with Bitcoin at the moment, well, Michael Saylor continues to buy more, and that doesn't seem to stop him. There's really no need to talk about this. This is what Michael Saylor does and continues to do it. Our friend NVK continues to be updating this graph. These are all the public companies that are holding Bitcoin. This list has gotten a hell of a lot more. And you can see the new companies that got in. A lot of them are mining companies. A lot of them are hedge funds, but others are not, just regular companies. And this list is expected to continue to grow. The things that frustrate me are things like Block One and the Tezos Foundation, because this is basically stupid people that had too much Bitcoin to begin with, that gave it all away for a bunch of scams. Any quick thoughts, Giacomo, Jimmy, before we move on to an actual story?
I think you said it all.
Okay, perfect. All right. So there's a couple of directions we can go, but since we did talk about the hash rate, let's jump to the hash rate story, and then we'll come back to the race car with Jack Mallers and also the Tether situation. So Bitcoin mining difficulty hits new high as Taproot begins its second signaling attempt. this was a pretty damn big jump in Bitcoin hash rate, 21%. Now, this does come on the heels of a hash rate decrease in the last adjusting period due to some outages in China. So this is slightly overinflated, but that is still pretty big. I was really hoping we would clear the mempool, because yesterday when I was looking at it, we were down to 20 blocks. We were down to 20 blocks, though I don't know what the hell. Oh, they fixed it. They fixed the data. There was this big gap here that looked very, very strange. I even saw it this morning, but that seems to have gone away. We almost cleared the entire mempool, but we have been cutting into 1 set per byte transactions. Let's see how much hashing power continues to come online. You can probably still send. We're doing the mempool a little bit early because of the hash rate adjustment. Here is that hash rate going to a new all-time high. We are going to talk about the mempool, the Taproot activation at the end. Probably better that way, save it for the end. But your general thoughts on the latest rise in Bitcoin hash rate? Jimmy, we'll start with you.
Yeah, it's exactly like you said. There was a big downward adjustment because of like some electricity problems in China and so on. And during this past period, we had something like 8-minute, 15-second blocks on average. So it was a significantly faster than the 10 minutes that it would normally be. So the upwards adjustment of something like 20% does mean that we are at an all-time high in terms of Bitcoin hash rate. We're at what, like 175, 180 exahashes per second, which is a tremendous amount of hashing power that is available to the network. I suspect that there's a lot more manufacturing of miners as well. I know that mining is insanely profitable still, especially for those people that know how to get cheap electricity and so on. That said, Marty Bent, I think, was speculating that because of the double whammy of the difficulty adjusting upward and the price going downward, it might mean that a lot of miners actually take their mining off. So I suspect that in terms of the mempool, we might see a little more clogging this 2-week period, and we'll see. But yeah, that might be the case, and we might see higher fees for 2 weeks, and then we might yo-yo back and forth a little bit, depending on how the price reacts and so on.
Yeah, but it's looking great once you zoom out 6 months into last year, and we had this giant mess. So that's awesome. Giacomo, quick thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think you guys said it all. Just that maybe we are talking about mempool clearing with accelerated block production due to the increase of the hash rate. There may be the fact that possibly the volatility in the market may actually compensate with more mempool production, which may overcompensate the mempool clearing. So it also depends on how many people will move Bitcoin on exchanges to sell and buy during volatility time. Maybe, I don't know, unpredictable. Also, the weatherman is Jimmy, so we'll just trust his prediction.
All right, so let's move on to one of the, I guess, the stories that will never, ever go away, and that is, of course, Tether. So it was actually funny this morning when I saw the news break. Tether's first reserve breakdown shows token 49% backed by unspecified commercial paper. So I'm reading this article. Okay, so much remains murky. However, in part because the pie chart provided by Tether on Thursday make no mention of any independent review by an accounting firm. Moore Cayman, an audit firm in the Caribbean with 5 employees, has published 2 reports this year attesting. So I'm looking for this report, right? Because everyone is saying, hey, Tether published this report. And I'm like, where is it? And then I eventually make my way to the Tether website, and I find this report, which is literally this. It is literally just a pie chart provided by Tether. So again, we are gonna assume it is taken at face value. We're gonna assume this is the truth coming from Tether because we really don't know. Like we have no idea if any of this is true or false. But assuming this is true, what do you guys think of this, right? Because it's saying that the 75% part is cash, cash equivalent, and other short-term deposits. And right here, 65% of 75% is commercial paper. So that's interesting. It doesn't look like there's that much cash sitting at the bank account, and most of it has been invested. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, they're basically managing it like a money market fund. And that's kind of what you would expect because there's a lot of dollars that flew into Tether, and they probably put it in the absolute lowest risk securities that they can. And you know, it's not very different than a money market fund. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say. It's it's not really a dollar. It's really a fund that you're investing in, and
Right.
their returns are trying to be a dollar.
So the other thing we can generally say is most of the money that Tether is holding to back Tether has been invested for Tether to make more money.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
we'll
but
see how those investments pan out. But to their, I guess to their defense, they have not invested it in anything risky because as you can see, only 1.6% is in shitcoins.
Or Bitcoin. We don't know, right?
I guess, but yeah, you're
other
right.
investment, yeah, include the digital token.
But that would be interesting, right? Like when you're giving them money, they're creating Tether with that money, but now they have the dollars. So what happens when they buy Bitcoin with those dollars? Like it's kind of like this, like weird loop. Giacomo, thoughts?
Well, on one hand, whenever we had any kind of disclosure from Tether or any kind of external investigation on Tether, like the one from the New York State, the state of New York, it turned out that they were pretty much, let's say, more liquid than the Tether conspiracy theory were actually imagining. There was most notably the loan from Tether to Bitfinex for the hack and stuff like that. But basically, it always turned out to be not a case of explicit fractional reserve. The point remained that even if I think the Bitfinex guys are, and Tether guys in particular, they are particularly smart. I know them personally. I think they are very smart, and they have no reason to do some kind of aggressive fractional reserve scheme. The point remains that Tether will always suffer several kind of counterparty risk, but by definition, by design, not by fraud. The first one is the one, what is Tether doing? Are they telling the truth about this kind of spreadsheet? Which I think the answer, I think personally, is yes. But there is a risk that they are not telling the truth, of course, even if because just as you read, there seems to be some huge difficulty to find some kind of independent auditing company. So there is the risk one, which is Tether telling the truth? If Tether is telling the truth, the risk two is actually that obviously, but this is kind of obvious, it's impossible to think that in the bank where Tether is keeping everything, they are just keeping all these billions of dollars in cash banknotes. This is just logistically impossible. I don't think that if they decided to, as a company, for these amounts, any bank in the world will keep this kind of full reserve in dollar cash. We're talking an incredible, even just logistically speaking, you know what kind of problems like Escobar or Heisenberg from Breaking Bad had to manage cash banknotes. They're not easy at this volume. Also, there is a problem in this second layer. There is a problem with the business model because, as you know, Tether is not charging much by issuing or by redeeming. the way they make money is by the fact that right now US dollars still have a overall a positive interest rate, unlike the euro. So they just keep the reserve and they just get the interest. So their business model right now is basically to mint the interest rate. So they cannot really maximize that with like keeping all cash in a giant vault. But then there is a third layer. Even if their bank is saying that they are keeping everything in this kind of cash or cash equivalent, that we may assess how much equivalent they are, there's still the fact that the bank itself may play some role of fractional reserve. I know that last time I told this on your show, I spoke with some Tether person that told me that they have a contract of full reserve with those banks, but this contract may be not trustworthy or not completely transparent. And then you have the final level, which is independent of Tether. The US dollar itself is not backed by anything, and the US dollar itself is an infinite printing game. So there is a problem, even if this full reserve bank is keeping this kind of low treasury bills. Treasury bills are still some kind of giant Ponzi scheme. So I think my overall takeaway from this story will be Tether is a great way to go around some kind of limitation in the passage between dollar and Bitcoin, because it separates trading from digital representation. So you can buy Tether with dollars, and then you can basically go in secondary market. And those secondary markets are great because you can go around KYC, AML, be more free, more efficient. So Tether is good to make secondary markets more efficient. That said, if you think that Tether can be a safe store of value over the long term, this is impossible, but independently from the definition, from the will of the company. Even just because it's dollar backed or dollar pegged, the dollar is not a good, a trustworthy store of value. So any kind of so-called stable coin cannot, by definition, be a reliable store of value because it's dollar. If digital dollar was a reliable store of value, we will not need Bitcoin in the first place, or we will not have need some money in the past like gold. So this is a little bit, the point is use it to buy Bitcoin in the secondary market because that is gold and it works well. Don't use it as a long-term store of value because you should not use dollars in general as a long-term store of value.
All right, very well said. Let's move over to our last official story before we get to the Taproot situation. And this is a good one. We have Jack Mallers just published on his Medium that they're announcing the Bitcoin car to race in the upcoming Indianapolis 500. And they've been working on this for quite a while, actually. And this is a grassroots project without official sponsors other than Jack and the Lightning Strike app itself. So this is what the car is supposed to look like. It looks really, really cool. They got some videos of them putting the car together. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to try to watch it on TV. Unfortunately, I will be in Dubai while this is happening. This is all being done with donations. And about 70% of these donations, from my understanding, are going towards Bitcoin development to give specifically Bitcoin more privacy. And this is an awesome way to advertise Bitcoin. So this is really cool. Hey, guys, if you want to support, here's the QR code. Here is the address. And you can see in the donation box, it has already gotten, maybe let me refresh. Maybe it's got a couple of more. Almost 1.3 Bitcoin has already been sent into this wallet. I don't know how much of it has already been cashed out, but for US dollars, obviously, eventually it will. I'm sure for core development purposes, they're happy to just take the Bitcoin. But yeah, really, really awesome. Jimmy, your thoughts on all of this? This is cool.
Yeah, I'm not really an Indy500 fan or anything, but yeah, the economics of sponsorship seem a little bit broken. I'm still confused why people like pay so much money to have their sticker on the side of a car that's going round and round. But I mean, who am I to say? It's probably more of a prestige thing. And you know, yeah, best of luck to them. I personally think like number go up is a much better marketing tactic than doing something like this, but we'll see.
I think it's cool, but I think the future world is like other shit coins are going to do something similar. They're going to have.
They already have. They had a Dogecoin car for
right.
something
So
a while back.
Man, like whoever is driving this thing, better beat the Dogecoin driver, because that would be just sad. Giacomo,
Well, I think that was NASCAR, man. This is Indy500.
I know, but eventually they'll be racing in the same circuit.
Well, in general, I agree with Jimmy's skepticism. In general, Bitcoin doesn't have a marketing department and doesn't need a marketing department. So structurally speaking, Bitcoin is developing and spreading without any kind of coordinated marketing effort. That said, especially this is true, especially in the long run. In the short run, it's actually nice that somebody can actually give up some of the space that they could get for their commercial product in order to give back some kind of honorary merchant to Bitcoin as a project in general. And it's also an interesting sociological experiment, because no open source, I mean, you don't have the TCP IP car, right? It never happened that a completely public and common infrastructure without any kind of specific gatekeeper or a proprietary manager, they could actually have their own sponsorship method. So I think this is not a general method. It's not generalizable. I mean, we cannot ask Jack to do this forever. Eventually, it will just do the Strike sponsorship or something. And the same goes for other Bitcoin companies. But I think it's very interesting that with Bitcoin, for the first time, you have an open standard infrastructure, which is not a company, not a product, but which also has the strange fact that the people using it feel like sponsoring a brand, which didn't happen to TCP/IP or similar technologies. So it's something cool. I like it. I think it's generous from Jack. And of course, this is not necessarily needed or in any way sustainable for the long term. But it's in the short term, it's a nice thing. It's very cool to look at.
All right, haters, let's go talk about Taproot. Hey, good job, Jack. Don't listen to these guys. All right. Okay, we'll talk about Hashrate. All right, Taproot. So,
23 to 13. Yeah, that's not quite gonna cut it.
It's not gonna cut it, but it's definitely an improvement from the last 2 weeks. So at least now there'll be more green blocks than red blocks. The big change was actually BTC.com pool has flipped over. This red block right here is BTC.com signaling no, and right here they're signaling yes.
Well, no, that happened in the last one too. They some of their blocks are green, some of them were red. From what I hear internally, they're running. I mean, like that might be BTC.com in one place and BTC.com in another place or something like that. They haven't gone through and upgraded everything yet, so that's kind of what's happening. The people that we should be concerned about are via BTC, BTC.top, and maybe Huobi as well. But those are the ones. They'll probably come into line towards the end of this 2-week signaling. But yeah, we'll see. A lot of them are signaling, so that's pretty good.
All right. So right before the show, I took a look at the mining breakdown, and thank you coin.dance for this awesome website. Just to see what the big pools are. Binance pool is actually 4th in line, and Via BTC is 5th. They have not yet switched. So what I did like an hour before the show, started putting one of these things together, basically trying to identify which pools have started signaling for Taproot. Now, as Jimmy said, BTC.com seems to be flip-flopping with different blocks, but flip-flopping between different blocks is okay for me. It just means that at least they have already made some efforts and they do want Taproot. Even if occasionally they're signaling no, it means it's only a matter of time before every BTC.com block becomes Taproot signaling block. And basically, we just need these because after slush, if you add the rest of it up, it's approximately 10%. And of course, this changes every minute. This is just the last 7 days of percentages. But all we need is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more pools to basically switch. And I haven't seen anything mined by Kano. Like I haven't, like all the times I just go through these blocks, I haven't seen much mined by them. But also, if you look at the last bunch of batches, I see blocks being mined by pools like one T hash, which I don't see on that chart. And there was another one that I didn't see on that chart. So I guess those are part of this other area. So some of these guys are already signaling. So let's say that 25% of this other area is signaling for Taproot. We really do just need 1, 2, 3, 4 more pools to fully start doing SegWit blocks. 5 more pools, sorry. BTC.top is going to be tricky. I'm pretty sure Hobie will do it. And I think eventually Binance will do it.
Yeah, they announced they'll do it. I don't know about via BTC. They're the ones that I think are kind of up in the air.
Yeah, via BTC. I mean, if they don't do it, then we're going to have to user activate soft fork again. Via BTC is a very bad actor. Via BTC was created during the block debates in 2017 in order to create big blocks. So I don't understand why Via BTC is even mining Bitcoin. They should be fully mining Btrash because that's where they belong. That is their only reason for existence. They were financed by the big blockers, but just like Bitcoin.com, you know, they care about money, but they obviously don't care about making the system better. So this is one of the probably the worst actor in this whole space that we know about. Maybe there's some back here in the other space. All right, Giacomo, your thoughts on Taproot activation?
Well, in general, I'm pretty positive. Let's remember that anyway, this is not a democracy, so this is not voting. This is a security signaling of technical readiness. So the idea is, we as a community think that we may want to change our individual nodes in order to support, to enforce a soft fork. We will do that. But before we do that, we have to be sure that we will not have a strong loss in hash power. So we want miners not to be orphaned away by our nodes if they don't enforce the rule. So we would like to see that they are ready to sustain. I mean, if we move, we want miners to be ready because that's smoother and safer for everybody. But this is a signaling of technical readiness. This is not like an opinion poll. It was turned into into an election, into a voting system, but that's not how Bitcoin works. That's not how maybe nation states work, but not how Bitcoin work. So this is not voting. So they can be ready or not ready, which is the important thing. If they are ready, good. If they are not ready, it's not such a tragedy. We will just orphan them until they're ready. When we decide individually to switch to Taproot enforcing nodes. And if they are ready, but they want to signal they are not ready for political reason, which is what I'm suspect. I mean, right now, I think that many red blocks are miners that are really not ready yet to run the new implementation with Taproot enforcement. So in this case, it's good that they are red because this means that they are not ready technically yet. They didn't before, there wasn't the binary, so they had to compile from source. Now they will have to integrate with their own the forks of Bitcoin because they will have to make it work. So right now, red blocks are very useful because they mean some miner is not technically ready yet to enforce this, which is a good information to have to avoid reorgs and orphaning and stuff, or a decrease in hash rate. After that, when everybody is technically ready, and somebody will just want to hold everybody hostage for political reason, we will just move to a stage in which we don't care anymore. It's very risky to soft fork in general because it's difficult to coordinate nodes, but it's not risky in the sense of having to ask permission to miners. That's not the point of Bitcoin. So we will see, and eventually we will just do UASF or some or even a smaller threshold of miner activation or whatever. There are many different things that can happen. More in general, I think that if you go back to the chart you were showing, CoinDance is a very cool site, but it's also a shitcoiner site. And if you go here, you see that there is all chains, as you see last 7 days all chains. So if you ask what is Via BTC doing on Bitcoin, they should just be mining Bitrash. That it may be that they are not mining Bitcoin that much, and even considering the fact that BCH and BSV are super small in nation power compared to Bitcoin, still that graph probably over represents them, because it's a chart over all chain which are mining the same.
But I'm a little surprised. They have, I think they have it separated, like cash.coin.
That's how much SHA-256 hashing power they have.
It's all chains.
I thought this cash.coins.dance represented, you know, the Bcash shitcoin.
Right. This is only Bcash. So they do Bcash only and all chains. So they are the site is neat from a graphical point of view, but it's a little bit sneaky from the propaganda point of view, because they have all chains or just Bitcoin Cash.
Man, all right. So where do we get good graphics? Because I'm trying to avoid going to the other horrible site of blockchain.com to look at any of these charts. So where do I go?
Good question. I don't know, Jimmy. You know some other chart?
No. I mean, you can probably compile it just using, you know, the block headers or.
Hey, Simon, if you're watching, please add those visuals into mempool.space, please.
Yeah. It would be a work that will not last the many years, because I hope that finally in a few years we will stop being able to identify blocks from mining pool. That would be great for censorship resistant, but still right now it's important.
All right, no, good point. I actually did not know that. I did not know that the Bitcoin hash rate wasn't Bitcoin hash rate. It's all, yeah, but all the other ones, I mean, they're so freaking irrelevant that it doesn't really matter. I mean, you can see how irrelevant the hash rate of BSV and Bcash is, though Bcash has had a little bit of a spike recently, but anyway.
It wouldn't change the number in a relevant way, but it was just to be sure that probably Via BTC will be smaller without that.
Yeah, I agree. And one last thing, as Giacomo was saying, Bitcoin is fully decentralized, which is once again something that Elon Musk doesn't seem to understand. If I go back to Elon's original tweet, he says, when Bitcoin, we are also, okay, wait a minute. That use us 1%. He said something about when Bitcoin mining stops using, you know, fossil fuels. But
as soon as mining transitions to more sustainable energy. So after selling any Bitcoin.
Right, but no one controls that. Like, hey, Elon, why don't you set a good example, and everything you do with your companies, all of them, better not use more than 1% of all of their energy from non-renewable sources, and we'll see how far your companies get.
Especially SpaceX. I mean, a battery that can keep a rocket running should be challenging, but it will be interesting to see.
Look,
I don't think there's enough power per the payload. Like you need a certain energy density. I don't think batteries provide it.
And the other thing is,
fusion sorry?
No, I was going to say, look, there are plenty of reports that, you know, what Elon's doing is actually worse for the environment. Now, I don't know how accurate those reports are. I don't know if they're written by certain people that have agendas. But this is definitely something that is certainly possible based on, you know, how these batteries are created and what happens to these batteries as they're dying. I can certainly see potentially it being overall worse for the environment with what Elon's doing, while at the same time, the pollution where all of these cars are is certainly better. And this is what people don't understand, right? Like if you think that every single person in your country will take Amsterdam, for example, or the Netherlands, if we're talking about countries, not cities, like almost everyone there is already driving a Tesla. I think it's got like the most Teslas per capita. So if every single person is driving a Tesla in the Netherlands, I'm sure the pollution rate in the Netherlands will drop significantly. It could be one of the cleanest countries in the world. If every single car there is an electric car, you don't have the in-your-face pollution. But that doesn't mean that you have decreased global footprint, because you've just outsourced that pollution outside of your little bubble where everyone is driving a Tesla. Am I wrong on this?
You're not. You're absolutely right. There are at least three levels of hypocrisy here. The first level is the one in which maybe the number may be a little bit soft or hard, but anyway, the first is, where is the electric power charging Tesla coming from? And usually, unless for a country with a lot of nuclear power, which is not renewable, but I would say it's absolutely sustainable and low pollution level if managed properly. So unless there is a lot of nuclear power, then all that most of that electricity comes anyway from basically burning hydrocarbons. So it's basically the same thing, if not worse. And then the second is, even if all the energy powering the Tesla batteries in the network, in the energy network, was coming from either sun or wind or geothermal or hydro or nuclear, which are not very polluting, how does the battery itself relate with environment pollution and stuff like that, which is so far is very, very badly. The power wall that you keep in your home, or the industrial battery, or the battery inside the car, they are very, very impactful from a pollution point of view. And then there is a third consideration, which is, again, Elon is not just making electric cars, but also freaking rockets burning hydrocarbons at an incredible rate in order to reach the outer space. So this feels a little bit hypocritical.
Yeah, unless Jimmy wants to add anything else to that, we'll move on to the price.
Let's move on to the price.
All right, let's move on to the price. And oh yeah, as I'm moving on to the price, I'm not actually a huge fan of nuclear energy. I know I'm an outlier here, and the reason why I'm not a huge fan of nuclear energy is because as a geologist, I know how many natural disasters could happen, and sooner or later, some of these big natural disasters, like the Fukushima incident, will happen again. And that's why I'm not a huge fan of nuclear energy, because a natural disaster could cause, like a natural disaster that can take out, let's say, a dozen nuclear power plants is a problem.
Well, Ton, I don't want to eject the price part into nuclear energy. Just a quick flash about that. You always have to compare cost in a trade-off, not to compare with absolute nothing. So if you don't use nuclear energy, use something else. And if you think about Fukushima, so a giant tsunami hitting a not even last generation nuclear power plant, and you compare the fact that tens of thousands of people died from the wave, and actually 0 people died of nuclear problem themselves. 0. You had some electrical burn, and that's all, and nobody died. And thousands of people died from displacement by the government in the local area, and 0 from nuclear from radiation. Basically, you see that it is not nothing is for free. But you can compare that.
No, I'm talking about anyway. This is a whole other show, right? Like how much how much seafood got polluted, right? Like they were finding traces of that in California.
Yeah, it's bad.
I mean,
it's bad.
There are
it's a
like
cost.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
because what I want to say is, let's compare it to in Italy we had Vaillant, which was a hydroelectric dam, and it collapsed for an accident, and then you had basically a village of 30,000 people wiped out immediately. So you have to compare things, and if you compare, you will see that, especially if not managed by Soviet Union or equivalent nation states, it may not fare that well. But then I will stop about this. Sorry for the off topic.
Yeah, no, because like I'm not sure how, like, when the wave killed a bunch of people, like how is that even a factor? That's independent, right? That's a natural disaster that was going to kill those people anyway. But this natural disaster should not also pollute all the fish in the Pacific Ocean. Like they're not mutually inclusive, right? They're completely independent
True.
events. Okay. Let's yeah, it's definitely a discussion for another day. But that's the one that I could certainly be wrong on and could lose that argument. Anyway, so we have the weekly chart. It continues to form the ascending triangle for potential to break the price of Bitcoin to the upside. We still have to wait for this week to close. And right now, it's still looking somewhat promising that we will close inside this triangle. There's no reason for me to adjust this triangle yet. I'm going to wait till the candle closes. I'm not going to be very happy watching the crossover of these moving averages. So the price needs to get back into this triangle and quickly, because this was driven by a tweet event. I do not yet take this candle seriously to kick off a bear market. Not how bear markets start. However, a candle like this is how bull markets begin. So this is a huge rebound off the lows last night. I would love to see this candle close in the upper half of this candle. We are holding the 128-day moving average, but the picture is overall deteriorating. We now have two moving averages declining, and the short-term moving average is now sitting below the intermediate term. That is the 20 period, that is the 50 period, and that is the 128-day period. We continue to hold the support line of the MRI, which is key. I like the fact that we have already made a new low on the swing, and as long as we do not make a new low on the close, we remain in this potential divergence mode where things are, well, not really divergence, but in continuation mode, where things are still looking a little bit slightly more bearish, slightly more bullish than bearish based on price action. The MRI has, of course, now turned bearish with this red star candle yesterday, and I will continue to watch the situation. I am not yet deploying more capital into Bitcoin. I will stay patient. I will wait for my breakout and see what happens. There could be a little more ramifications from it left. Last night, Joe and I were streaming the 5-minute chart, and the last thing I said before getting off the stream was that I was going to be bullish as of this green line right there. Now, we initially turned. I ended the stream here. This was going to be my stop loss. Now, as you guys can see, this stop loss was eventually broken, but it did take a little while. But before it was broken, we did go higher to the upside. I'm not going to go into the details how I would have traded it. Most likely, I would have just taken my stop loss somewhere over here near break even, and then waited for the rest of this to develop. In either case, I think this is looking slightly more bullish than bearish, because on a zoomed out picture, even on this 5-minute chart, we have clearly established a higher swing low. This higher swing low came in on an MRI buy. We then had a 5-minute MRI sell here, another one right up there with the reversal candle. We did have an MRI buy, which then broke the support line. And now we're going up. If we can get above all of these moving averages, I think that's the first sign to going higher. And if the 5-minute chart can break above this swing high, I think the worst is actually behind us for now. and a rebound at the least back to the breakdown area. So let's now move up to an hourly chart. An hourly chart, oh, is making a very nasty bearish pennant. So that is not good. Not something I want to see. I like the fact that we rebounded on the candle following the MRI buy, but I'm not a big fan of this structure. This structure tends to lead to more downside, but not always. So let's see what happens. I'm going to leave this triangle here on the hourly chart, and we'll look at it in about 20 to 24 hours the next time I do a stream, unless something crazy happens tonight. This is a pattern that tends to break down more often than it breaks up. However, that was a lot of volume and a lot of buying volume right there. So there's still hope that the worst is actually behind us. The funding rate on the 1 hour chart is not very useful. It is neutral. So we'll have to take a wait and see approach. I'm not very bullish here on the 1 hour chart. Glance at the 4 hour chart. This thing is going to come to an end fairly soon. With the 4 hour chart, just going to wait for the MRI to see if we had an MRI buy right here on this candle. No, we would not have, because I already see it from the numbers. So that's pretty much my view. Quick peek at the stock market. Stock market continues to drop on a weekly scale. Rebounded today a little. That could help Bitcoin, but I'm looking at a 1 to 4 week correction, and then we reevaluate. All right, guys, that's pretty much it. One last peek at Taproot.
See BTC.com. Yeah.
Yep. BTC.com is now on a red block after having a green block. So they're still, trying to find. They're still trying to figure out whether they are or aren't technologically ready. All right.
All right.
I think that's it. Jimmy, I need to pull up your site and then go ahead and promote.
Yeah, so I do have my 2-day seminar, and I will have that in Miami, June 1st and 2nd. Of course, you got my books, Programming Bitcoin, Thank God for Bitcoin, and the Little Bitcoin book. But yeah, I'm going to do the seminar in Miami, June 1st and 2nd. I am also doing the seminar in Mexico before the Bitcoin Standard Conference, which I believe Tone will be at August 10th and 11th. And yeah, the books are all available on Amazon. Thank God for Bitcoin is a moral argument for Bitcoin. The Little Bitcoin book is a Bitcoin book for newbies. And I believe these will be available in Miami at the conference. And I found out yesterday that my panel is going to be the moral case for Bitcoin. So it'll be very relevant. And yeah, that's what I'll be working on.
All right, awesome. And Giacomo Zucco.
Yeah, the site is up again, so I managed to got it up again. And actually, in upcoming events, there is nothing yet because I'm lazy and disorganized. But there should be very soon an apply form for the workshop in Mexico together with Jimmy. This will be basically the same kind of workshop we did with Newton in Las Vegas and Confiscatable, a little bit simplified because that last one was a very harsh on the students because 2 days to do all that stuff was pretty complex. So it will be a simplified version in Mexico, same days, so 10, 11, and it will be very soon possible to subscribe from the next event session of the you will be there somewhere, Ton, eventually.
I will. I really want to attend your workshop in Mexico, but I don't know if I'll make it there on those days. I'm going to do my best.
I was meaning that you will be in the picture somewhere. You are in some of the pictures.
I'm in a picture somewhere. Yeah, also, I recognize some of the backgrounds because I was at most of these events. Not the events, not I've been to your lab as well. But yeah, I'm also around there somewhere. Yeah.
If you scroll up, I have to credit that basically the headshot here was actually provided kindly by your staff in Unconfiscatable, because I just reused that. So thank you. Credits to Ton Vays and his staff.
Thank you, Giacomo. All right, guys. Hey, we broke 1,000 viewers for the majority of the show. So I want to thank everyone for watching. Thank you for staying with the channel. And we will do another one of these news shows sometime next week. Hopefully, more craziness. Well, hopefully not, but as we expect, a lot of craziness is going to happen. All right, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. See you all on the next one.
Fiat Delenda Est. This song